In the age when Hutts ruled criminal syndicates, cartels, and shadow empires, when their names were spoken in back alleys and throne rooms rather than in Jedi archives, there was one among them who chose another path. His name was Beldorion, and for a time, the galaxy forgot that he ever existed. Yet his life is one of the strangest and the most tragic in all of Legends, because it proves something that the Jedi never wanted to admit. Even a creature born for hunger can hear the call of the Force. Long before the fall of the Republic, before the Clone Wars, before the rise of the Empire, the Jedi discovered something that they had never seen before. A young Huttling powerful in the Force. Hutts already lived long lives, sometimes for centuries, sometimes for a millennia. Combined with the Force, such a being might one day become unstoppable. Yet the Order did not turn away. They brought him to Coruscant, to the Temple, to the heart of the light. There he was trained alongside other initiates. He learned to quiet his mind, to slow his breath, and silence impulses that every Hutt is born with. Others denied ambition. He denied appetite. Others overcame anger. He overcame greed. To the Jedi Masters, he was an experiment in discipline. To Beldorion, he was proving that he was more than what his species had been known for. He saw masters like Yoda walking the halls. He read the histories of Thrawn. He listened to the tales of those that had resisted the dark side not for a decade, but for centuries. That mattered to him, because Beldorion was playing the long game. He was a Hutt. He knew he would outlive almost every Jedi that he trained beside. If he could master himself, he could master the Force longer than almost anyone alive. That awareness shaped him when he finally forged his lightsaber. Most Jedi choose blue or green, colors of serenity, protection, and of clarity. Beldorion chose purple. He did not pick it for vanity. He picked it because he recognized something about himself that other Jedi were afraid to admit. Purple is the space between blue and red, between peace and passion, between discipline and desire. Beldorion knew that he had darker, latent instincts. He knew he was drawn to power in a way many Jedi were not. Instead of pretending those impulses were not there, he acknowledged them. The weapon became a confession. I have darkness in me, and I will master it. And for more than a century, he did. Beldorion served missions for the High Council. He traveled to distant worlds to sharpen his senses. He endured grueling trials on places most Jedi rarely visited. He was taken to Aphel, a shadow world where light is scarce and Force perception must be precise. He was taken to Yenibith, where contact with the living Force can be overwhelming. These were not casual field trips. These were places the Jedi sent those they believed could handle something more intense. And Beldorion did. For decade after decade, he was proof that even a being born to overindulge could live by the code, until the Council sent him to a world by the name of Nam Chorios. Nam Cororios was not an important planet. It was a quiet, storm-dark world at the edge of galactic concern. Yet, there were disturbances in the Force there that the Order needed to know why. So they sent two Jedi Knights, Beldorion, and a fellow Jedi by the name of Taselda. This is where the story turns from history to tragedy. Nam Chorios was not dead. Beneath its quiet surface ran currents of power, focused through a strange native crystal known as the Tsil. The Tsil stones did something rare. They didn't simply respond to the Force, they amplified it. They made every sensation brighter, every impulse louder, every desire closer to the surface. To most Jedi, that was dangerous. To a Hutt, born already attuned wanting more, it was intoxicating. At first, Beldorion resisted. He walked the barren terrain. He meditated in the presence of the Tsil. He spoke with Taselda about restraint. He told her, as he had once told himself, that hunger did not command him. But Nam Cororios was patient, and the Tsil stones did not tempt him with pleasure or wealth. They tempted him with power. Real, immediate, living power. Power that did not have to be granted to him by the High Council, or bound by the Code. Power that could fuel the Hutt body for centuries. Power that could make him not just the only Hutt Jedi in galactic history, but the greatest Hutt who ever lived. That was the thought that pushed him over the edge. Beldorion had always believed that the Force was something that he could hold in balance. On Nam Cororios, he discovered something worse. The Force could make his very nature stronger. It could make the Hutt in him louder. He did not stumble into the dark side. He chose it. He chose to embrace that part of him. The part that he had disciplined for over 100 years. And when he finally turned, it was not an accident. It was not a moment of weakness. It was a declaration. Taselda stood in his way. The two Jedi who had arrived together did not leave that way. In a storm-lit, crystal-lit duel, Beldorion unleashed the power that he had always kept caged, hidden from other Jedi. His purple blade twisted and redirected mid-strike, displaying hints of the 7th form Juyo. He fought with more strength than most humans could withstand, and Taselda fell. And when she fell, the last tether to the Jedi Order that Beldorion had snapped. From that day, Nam Chorios had a king. Beldorion reinvented himself as Darksiders often do. He did not call himself Knight any longer. He took titles: Beldorion the Splendid, Beldorion of the Ruby Eyes. He reshaped his Hutt body through the Force, refusing to become the sluggish, overgrown slug his species was known for. He remained muscular, powerful, a warlike Hutt of legend, and he ruled Nam Cororios with an iron will. But this is also where he would encounter his demise. Nam Chorios was home to a species of a parasitic being known as the Drakh. One of these Drakh had mutated. They were far more cunning than the others. This Drakh chose to take on a humanoid form and called himself Dzym. Dzym came before Beldorion not as a slave, but as a partner. He offered an exchange: access to the Tsil stones, access to the planet's secrets and its power, and in return for helping Beldorion stay strong, young, and vitalized. Beldorion accepted this bribe. Why wouldn't he? He was Hutt. He intended to rule for centuries. He had fallen to the dark side to escape limitation. But Dzym was not serving him. Dzym was feeding on him, quietly, patiently, for years, then for decades, then for centuries. He siphoned the Hutt's force energy, using it to fuel his own nightmarish plan to one day flood the galaxy with the Drakh and enslave every living creature. So we have the perfect dark side irony, a being who fell because he wanted to consume power, slowly being consumed himself. Still, even drained, Beldorion remained incredibly dangerous. He could still summon massive force storms. Few Dark Jedi ever reached this tier of power. Even some Sith Lords never do. He could still bend the minds of those around him. He could inflict debilitating pain on servants, ending them with a thought. He could still wield his purple lightsaber with enough strength to nearly snap a human's wrists with a single clash. What he could not do anymore, though, was leave. Centuries had worn on. The Republic changed, fell, and rose again. The Clone Wars came and went. Order 66 burned through the Jedi like fire through dry grass. But no one came for Beldorion. No Inquisitor, no Clone Trooper, no Imperial Assassin. He had vanished from the galactic stage long before, buried himself on a backwater planet, and so he survived what so many greater Jedi did not. He survived because he was forgotten. This is the part that makes him so fascinating. Beldorion lived as a Jedi for more than a century, but he lived as a Dark Jedi tyrant for nearly 4. Few Force wielders get that long to grow, to experiment, to twist the Force to their liking. If he had been found by an actual Sith tradition, by someone like Vader or Sidious, and they had chosen to train him instead of destroy him, he could have become something terrifying. A Hutt whose entire species' instinct for control was now molded by Sith doctrine. A being who never felt guilty about taking. A being who could live for centuries and not diminish. Instead, he became a dark god in a decaying temple, slowly leached by a parasite. By the time the New Republic era rolled around, Beldorion was still there. Old, not frail, drained, but not harmless. He still remembered masters like Yoda, Tales of Thrawn. He still remembered the time when the Jedi were unchallenged. He still remembered what it felt like to be the only Hutt within their halls. That pride never left him. Even when his telekinesis faltered, even when he sometimes struggled to lift a tray, even when his storms came less readily. Inside, he was still Beldorion. But then the planet received an unexpected visitor. Leia Organa Solo had arrived at Nam Cororios. Leia was not there for him. She was there because others had been captured, because the plot involving Dzym and the Tsil stones threatened to spread far beyond one forgotten world. But in coming there, she walked into the domain of a creature out of another era. A creature who had once stood in the temple and now sat on a throne as a Dark Jedi king. Beldorion captured Leia. Of course he did. He wanted to know why a Jedi of this new era had come. He wanted to boast. He wanted to tell stories. In his mind, he had outlasted the Jedi. He had outlived the Purge. The galaxy had turned several times, and yet he still remained. So he spoke to Leia of the past, of ancient masters, of the choice to fall, of how the Jedi had asked him to deny what he was, but the dark side had offered him the chance to become what he was meant to be. This is where his philosophy becomes clear. He did not believe the dark side corrupted him. He believed that it had completed him. He had always had a natural, latent connection to selfishness, to wanting, the desire to possess. His species was built for it. The purple amethyst blade he had once worn as a Jedi was not a mistake. It was a sign that he knew that about himself innately. What finally pushed him over was not weakness, it was opportunity. The Tsil stones made it possible for him to embrace fully what he had always been tempted by, and once he embraced it, he never looked back. Leia, however, was not there to be impressed. She recovered her weapon. She confronted the Hutt. And now we finally see Beldorion fight not as a rumor, not as a historical footnote, but in a real duel. Even in his drained state, even after centuries of being fed upon, he was a monster. He swung his lightsaber with such force that each collision rattled Leia's arms. He redirected his strikes mid-swing in a manner of Juyo, keeping her guessing where the next attack would come from. He combined the raw Hutt strength with refined training and dark side ferocity. It is no wonder that in his prime, he ruled an entire world, but it was not his prime any longer. This is the tragedy. Leia was not on the level of Luke. She was not at the level of the great prequel era Jedi duelists. She was still growing, yet she outmaneuvered him successfully, not because she was the better swordsman, but because he had spent centuries in luxury, in rule, in isolation, in slow starvation from the Force. Dzym had taken so much from him, because the power he had once consumed had now been consumed from him. In the end of the duel, Leia bisected him. A clean, decisive kill. The only known Hutt Jedi. The only known Hutt Dark Jedi. A being who had lived through half a millennium, cut down by the daughter of Anakin Skywalker on a forgotten world that should never have mattered. Before Beldorion died, he said this: "I may be a lazy old slug now, but I am Beldorion still." It is a defiant final line. He knew what he had been. He knew what he could have been. He knew that his potential had never been fully realized. He knew that had he been trained by true Sith, or had he stayed a Jedi long enough to lead, he could have, or would have become one of the most dangerous Force wielders in galactic history. Instead, he reigned over a world few ever cared about, was drained by a parasite no one knew, and died to a Jedi who was not even in her final form. And that is why the story works so well, because it is not about a Hutt Jedi who fell. It is about what happens when a being with a naturally dark-aligned temperament tries to live in the light, succeeds for a very long time, is finally given a taste of what unlimited power feels like, and then one who chooses it. It is about how the dark side will wait for centuries if it has to. It is about how the Force, when amplified by outside sources such as the Tsil or Nam Chorios, can turn discipline into indulgence. It is about how hunger, when given power, does not stop. Beldorion is not just a strange trivia entry in the Planet of Twilight. He is one of the longest-lived, highest potential Dark Jedi that we have in Legends. He survived Order 66 without hiding. He ruled openly. He reshaped his body with the Force. He summoned storms. He bent minds. He did it all while being a member of a species that should have never been able to do any of that. Which raises the best question to end on. If Beldorion had not been sent to Nam Cororios, if he had not been drained by Dzym, if he had been found instead by someone like Sidious, who prized loyalty and potential above all, would he have become the greatest weapon that the Sith had ever shaped? Or would even the Sith had feared a Hutt whose appetite finally had the Force to match? Thank you so much for joining me in the archives here today, my friend. And as always, may the Force be with you.